This is World Talk, and I am Lisa Wickham, producer, director, and president and CEO of Imagine Media. We are actually live on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll be taking some of your questions and comments as we go through our interview today. So get your questions ready. My guest today is a poet, a writer, an author. He's the author of Refugee, Journey Much Desired, because he himself was a refugee and stayed in 2 refugee camps. He's a philanthropist, public speaker, university student, and he's just 22 years old. I'll be speaking with him, and we'll be talking about many things that he's been involved in. We'll also talk about his views with regard to the protests, and we'll talk about so many other questions that you might have as well. If you've missed this program, you can go onto our YouTube channel, and you can go on to Lisa Wickham on YouTube and check out some of the previous episodes that we've had. And if you like what you see and you want it to continue, remember you can contribute by logging on to www.fundmetnt.com and contribute whatever you can so that we can keep this series going. I want to say thank you to the people who make this possible. Heaven Sent Productions, InnoMedia, Genesis Productions Limited, Leroy Lexmart, and Imagine Media. And together as a team, your contribution will make it possible. All right, we're going to take in a few messages. When we come back, remember to share so that others can be inspired by the compelling story of John Michael Koffi after this. Vegas Designs. Thank you for joining me on World Talk. We are live on Facebook and Instagram, so wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining me. And I'm going to bring in live from Canada right now, John Michael Koffi, author, poet, writer, musician, philanthropist, university student, activist. Oh my goodness, John, and you're just 22 years old. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Hi.
Hi. And how do you do it all of the above at just 22 years old?
Well, I have no idea. We'll find out, hopefully.
We will. We plan to share, because this series, we share stories like yours that would inspire and compel others to make a change, make a difference in the lives of others. How have you been doing? So what time is it where you are?
So right now it's like 10 a.m., 8 minutes past 10 or so.
Where are you in Canada exactly?
Yeah, I'm in Vancouver, so on the West Coast.
But you go to the University of British Columbia.
Yes, that's
So what
correct.
are you doing in Vancouver?
So the university is closed. We've been impacted by the pandemic, as I guess everyone around the world.
Yes.
But at the moment I'm working. So there is a work integrated learning program that I'm doing, and this is my very first semester working full time. So I'm pausing on classes,
right?
Which is fun.
And you're the author of Refugee, the Journey Much Desired.
Yes.
And it's a true story of your life. What age did you start writing this book?
I started right around the time I turned 18.
18 years old.
Yes.
Wow. And when you read some of the words that you've been able to pen at 18, it's very profound. Where did that come from?
Well, to be honest, I've always written, and as you might guess, being a refugee coming from a Francophone country, English hasn't always been easy.
Yes.
I actually started writing the book about 7 years since I had started speaking English.
Yeah.
Yeah, so learning English, reading a lot, I always find inspiration in doing my own writing to know that okay, I'm learning. So it kind
Yes.
of emphasized my learning. And
Yes.
when I started writing the book as well at the age of 18, part of it was to tell my story, to contribute to the global discourse surrounding refugees and migrants, especially considering that most of the portrayal in the media was not really friendly, or it misrepresented the stories that they were giving. So I
Yeah.
wanted to add my own voice, but I also wanted to explore my emotion, explore my writing skills, uh, all of that.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit now. So, what was it like growing up for your first 11 years in the
Mm.
DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo?
Yeah. Well, as many people know, DRC is quite an unstable country, thanks to colonialism and dictatorships and all sorts of corruption and exploitation, mostly exploitation. Um, yeah, growing up in the eastern part in North Kivu, it wasn't easy, because for some time there is stability and then there is instability. But I had a normal childhood, loving family, extended family, playing with my cousins, going to school for most of it as
Yeah.
normal, and I was very much sheltered from most of what was going on. Yeah, and also like as a young boy growing up, I really didn't understand much.
Yeah.
It's
And at that time, you spoke only French.
French, Swahili, a bit of Kinyabwisha, which is like my native language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the age of 11, your family was
Mm.
forced to flee on foot. So, you guys walked to Malawi. Tell me about that.
Not necessarily walked all the way,
Yeah.
but there was a fair bit of walking. So crossing borders, of course, when you are fleeing, you don't have time to gather your passports and all
Yeah.
kinds of documentation. You just go because you have to go. You are thinking about saving your life. Um, but having extended family, having friends, like my parents had friends all over, they would facilitate the process, transiting between one place to another,
Yeah.
walking for kilometers, and sometimes being in the bus for like 3 days, you know. Yeah, and eventually we ended up in Malawi. We spent a bit of time in Tanzania as well before moving on to Malawi. So
Yes.
it's a whole transition.
Yeah. What was it like living in a refugee camp? You came from a normal childhood, relatively normal childhood, and then you
Mm.
found yourself in this refugee camp. Can you describe for us what it was like at that age?
Yeah, it's many things, to be honest. It's many things. It's There is a lot of instability, that feeling of not belonging, which is amplified by the fact that you are surrounded by people whom you don't know. You are a foreigner and you are surrounded by foreigners in a foreign country. Um, you don't speak the language. Um, all of a sudden, you don't have access to all the things that you are used to,
Yeah.
including food, proper bedding, shelter, you know. So there is a lot of uncertainty happening, um, a lot of readjusting, and a lot of like recognizing that you are no longer who you used to be. I
Yeah.
think for me that was the hardest, knowing that I can't just decide to go and visit my aunt because my aunt doesn't exist in my life anymore, and then not knowing whether tomorrow you are actually going to go to school because you are sleeping on an empty stomach. So I can't find words to put all that in, uh, but it's hard.
Yeah. But you mentioned school. School was always important to you.
Oh yeah.
How were you able to continue your schooling as a refugee?
So in the book, I write a little bit about my experience registering for grade 7, because when we left, the DRC had just completed grade 6.
Yeah.
And that transition from French speaking to English speaking is a deterrent enough that for most of the students, they just put them in lower grades, grade 3, grade 4, so that they have a bit of an upbringing in English before they can start taking on some contents.
Yeah.
But so when we arrived in the refugee camp in Malawi, as luck would have it for me, I kind of realized that I needed a distraction. And thankfully, my distraction was the library. So I would invest a lot of my time in reading English for beginners books. I think so. There is a library in Zaleka refugee camp in Malawi where we lived, and it's built by the Jesuit refugee services. I feel like every English for beginners book that existed in that library, I read it because I really wanted to acquire the language as fast as possible,
Yeah.
which wasn't easy, so that I don't go back to the lower grades. And the teachers insisted that I go back to the lower grades, but through negotiations, I managed to register in grade 7.
Yes.
So that on its own inspired me because I know I'm not at the same level with some of my friends, even though most of them were refugees.
Yeah.
I had to do double the work to have to be at this to achieve the same results, and that helped me to focus on school.
So you were studying while managing this brand new environment. And in your book, and because I know you, I know that you're super bright. Yeah, you possess multiple intelligences. You're not going to say that, but you do. You are. And don't forget, guys, if you have any questions for John Michael, he's going to answer them. You just have to put it into the Facebook chat, and we'll get it to, we'll answer it for you. But, you're super bright. And you have a story in your book about when you wrote exams for a special scholarship, because I know to you and to your dad, education was key. It was your way out of the situation that you were in.
Right.
You want to tell us about that story? It has something to do with your name, actually.
Oh. If you are thinking what I'm thinking, then you're probably talking about starting a high school, secondary school in Malawi.
Yes.
So Malawi follows 8 years of primary school and then 4 years of secondary school. So I finished grade 7 and I was really passionate about going to this school called the Likuni Boys Secondary School. It's one of the best schools countrywide. And my father, probably thinking that it's like an unattainable dream, he was like, okay, if you get in, I'm going to do everything I can to pay for you. And he did keep his promise. But so I wrote the entrance exams. It was a missionary exam, and I passed the exam. But my French sounding name, Jean Michael Koffi, for some reasons, the Malawians interpreted it as Jean Michel, which is a female name. So this is like, I'm doing international relations at UBC, and when you're talking about intersectionality, these are some of the things at the back of my mind. How a name gets assigned the gender without considering the individual involved,
Yeah.
So they ended up sending me to a girls' school because so there were 3 missionary schools which kind of operated together.
Yes.
And when you sat for one exam, you sat for one exam for all the 3, 2 of them girls' schools, and one of them, which is where I intended to go, a boys' school.
Yeah.
So they sent me to Lodz Girls Secondary School, and it was a whole other process trying to change that. But eventually I ended up at Libos.
Yes. So I read your book, and in the book, the way you described it, you were listening for your name. At how old you would have been? How old at that age? Probably about 12.
12?
Yeah.
12. Yeah, 12, yes.
Yeah. And you're listening with your dad for your name, and they go through the entire list of boys, and you don't hear your name, and you hear the names of other persons who, probably didn't do as well as you at school, and they've gone, and you were devastated, only to find out that your name was on the list for the girls' school. Yeah. But it worked out in the end.
It worked out in the end. And when I was listening, and they started calling Likuni Girls Secondary School, I was listening to see if some of my friends who were girls were going there, and then Likuni Boys Secondary School, and I didn't hear my name. I was really frustrated. I was so sad that I did not make it.
Yeah.
In that instantaneous moment, I was like, okay, what went wrong? And then I pressed on because I wanted to see if some of my friends had gotten into Lodzi Girls Secondary School, and yeah, that was my name.
And at that point, you said, no longer am I Jean Michael, which is J-E-G,
Jean-Michel.
yeah, Jean Michel. You became John Michael, at least in your brain, because at 12, you couldn't possibly change your name officially at that time, right?
No, actually, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
Because when I went to the school and they explained to me the whole drama of what happened, there was a brother, a Marist brother, Brother Morocco, who was the head teacher of Likuni boys at the time.
Yeah.
And he was so understanding, so compassionate that he actually sat me down and said, okay, I know the stress you have had to go through. You performed very well in the test, but we made a mistake, so don't worry. And I'm listening. I'm like, okay, this will not happen again.
Yeah. Yeah. And that
but if I was
changed
to be
your life.
honest with you, yes, that changed my life. If I was to be honest with you, like looking back right now, that frustrates me a little bit because, you know, coming from Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, a place that has been colonized and continues to suffer many systematic injustices, it's like we are always trying to adapt to the colonial
Yes.
colonial creation.
Yeah.
You know, I'm coming from a French-speaking background with a French-sounding name, not a traditional name, so to say. And then I have to adapt to the English colonial system because I'm in that atmosphere. So I did not understand much of this when I was there, even when I was writing the book. But now when I look back, I'm like, this is interesting.
But that's very interesting that you would talk about that because what we're seeing now with the Black Lives Matter movement has to do with the whole process after colonialism around the world. It has to do with colorism, classism, you know, and so much more. What are your thoughts on that? I know we were going to talk about it a little later on. Perhaps we can touch on it now and then come back and find out about how you eventually moved from Africa to Europe and then to Canada. But what are your thoughts about what's going on in the world right now, which started in the U.S.?
Yeah, I'm proud. I'm proud that finally people like get to stand up. Of course, my heart goes to George Floyd and his family, as well as many Black men and women who have continually suffered systematic injustices and have died at the hands of people who were meant to protect them.
Yes.
You know, so I think about that a lot. And I'll be honest with you. Yesterday, I made a conscious choice of deleting all my media apps because I found myself reading a lot, and I'm like, okay, I'm proud of what's going on, but it's a bit too much. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
I hope to see a world when systematic injustices are no longer existing. And this is the time that the world should stand up and say no to racism, no to discrimination, no to xenophobia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. Well, you know, this is the generation to do it. You are the guys to make the change, John Michael. We have a question from Facebook. It comes from Richard Bruce Murrell, and he says, what was one of your best experiences throughout your life?
One of my best experiences. Oh, that's interesting. That would probably be from my childhood, actually. One of the things that I really miss a lot. You know, during the evenings, under the moonlight, lighting a fire, and then gathering with the cousins and having some storytelling sessions from grandma or other elders. I really miss that.
Yeah.
That's one of the experiences I wish I would always have.
Yeah. And are your parents still alive?
My parents are alive, thankfully, which is a huge privilege, actually, as a refugee. You know, many of my peers, they are orphaned. Yeah, my parents are alive. They are well in Swaziland. as well as anyone can be in these times, of course.
Yes, yes. All right, so we are going, you mentioned Swaziland. We're going to find out how you got from Malawi to Swaziland and everywhere else in between. We're going to take in a few messages. Don't forget, you can put your questions on Facebook. We're starting to answer them, and we'll continue, and we'll get to as many as we can. And if you like what you're hearing and you want us to continue sharing more inspiring and compelling stories from around the world, please do log on to www.fundmetnt.com. You just look for World Talk and you can contribute whatever you can, and we'll certainly continue the series here for you on Facebook and Instagram. And if we have any questions from Instagram, we'll be answering your questions as well. And also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Lisa Wickham, so that you can catch up on any episodes that you might have missed. We're taking a few messages. Come right back with John Michael Koffi. This is World Talk, and we are live. Yes, we're live on Facebook and Instagram. I'm so glad that you guys are with us, and I'm going to jump into a question before we continue talking, because I think there needs some clarification. It comes from Diane C.G. Robertson. And John Michael, I know you're there with me, says, such an engaging and inspiring story. John Michael, how long did you stay in the girls' school before transitioning?
Wow. Okay. Luckily enough, or unluckily, I don't know, whichever you want to take it, I did not go like to Lodzi girls.
Yes.
So as soon as I recognized the mistake, I engaged the parish priest, Nantomba Parish, which is where the refugee camp, the Catholic church in the refugee camp fell under. And then the parish priests, of course, called the higher ups, and they sorted it out before school started. So when school started, I went to Likuni Boys like everyone else.
Wonderful. And then from Malawi, you went to Swaziland. Now, I know you did not walk from Malawi to Swaziland. So how did you get to Swaziland?
Yeah. So transitioning to Swaziland, though, let me mention something also related to education. You know, I was very passionate about Likuni Boys Secondary School. It still is one of the best schools in Malawi. And I get in like a year later, you know, instabilities start in Malawi. The same year, former President Dr. Bingwa Mutharika died. And then there is looting for refugees. There is all this persecution. It's like many refugees are reliving the experiences that they have lived. In their former countries. So much discrimination, especially for those who are in cities, like my father who had moved on. And then my family decided that it was time to move.
You had just got into the school, though?
I had just finished my first year in the school.
Yes.
And I was doing so well. I think I was top of my class in almost every subject except Chichewa, which is the local language.
Yeah. And then you had to leave suddenly.
Yeah. So I had to leave all of that again, and that was very, very depressing for me. We traveled from Malawi through Mozambique. Most of it, well, public transport sometimes trucks. It was like a 3-day journey, if I'm not mistaken. And we did spend some time in Maputo before crossing the border to Swaziland.
And was this just you and your family, or was it a group of refugees going together?
No, it's me and my family. Me and
Oh,
my
that
family.
must have
Yeah.
been scary.
It's always scary. One of the things, in fact, one of my earliest blogs on my website, I write about corruption and like how that sometimes is a good tool. Probably not the most popular idea. You know, we had to engage some smugglers. Like all these borders we are crossing, we don't have proper travel document, just like many refugees out there. Um, so engaging smugglers, they generally stay a distance from you. They give you a phone. If you don't have a phone, okay, we'll call you when you reach here. Look for somebody who is wearing this, or when you reach here, look for a restaurant called this. So you are navigating a country, a reality that you are completely unfamiliar with. And Mozambique, of all countries, they have so many police checks along the routes. Yeah, so it was very scary at times when you meet a policeman and they are coming to you, two of them with AK-44, and are like, okay, is this it? Is this where I die?
Yeah.
Or am I going to move on? And then you give them 200 medication, they let you go. And then the same thing happens a few kilometers later. So it was very scary. It's always a scary undertaking.
And at this time, you were just like 13, 14 years old, yeah?
Yes.
So when you
Yeah,
got
so
to...
that's
So you got...
2012. I was about to turn 15, I think.
Yeah, you got to Swaziland and you entered school, upon which time you got a scholarship that took you to United World College in Germany. But we have some images of you in Swaziland that I wanted to ask you about, because you spent some time at a secondary school there, I'd imagine. And
Yes.
there's one of you in traditional wear that we're going to take a look at, and you'll tell me what's that about. And there's another one of you sort of speaking to some students, other students. So there you are in traditional wear. Is that from the Congo, or what sort of traditional wear is that?
So this image from the traditional way actually comes in later. So my high schooling in Swaziland, I did Form 1 to Form 5. I did Form 4 and Form 5 in like a rural school near the refugee camp, and then afterwards I went to A levels. I started A levels before going to UWC. I had just started. So the picture in my traditional wear, it's in a school called St. Mark's. My A levels. That was a Siswati day, which is a day when like the school celebrates the Swazi cultures. And that did not belong to me. I borrowed from one of my friends. Nzika was his name. Is his name.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was very glad to see me as a refugee from the Congo, trying to embrace some aspects of the Swazi culture.
Yeah.
But I felt very uncomfortable.
So that was you being culturally aware of another person's culture. But what's happening here? Because you seem to be speaking to the other children in the school, but you guys are in the same uniform. So is this your secondary school?
Yes, that's my secondary school, Mbaga High School, when I was still living in the refugee camp. And there, actually, I think I was giving one of my head boy speeches, because as luck would have it, again, working hard in class, always trying to be the best. Apparently, teachers recognize some potential.
So you were the head boy.
I was the head boy, yes. So from time to time, I would find myself giving some address.
Yes.
But I don't remember exactly that picture when it was taken. It might be after one of the competitions.
So you were the head boy. I figured it was something like that. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit, because you won a scholarship, no surprise there, to the United World College. And that's how I met you, because you became friends with my daughter at the UWC in Germany. So you've left Africa. You're no longer a refugee. What was it like when you landed in those mountains in the Black Forest in Germany at the United World College?
I will tell you what it was, but allow me to correct something. I was still a refugee. I am still a refugee even right now.
Why do you say that?
And because I am. I travel using a refugee travel document provided by the Kingdom of Swaziland. I don't have any citizenship anywhere
How does that work?
yet. Uh, um, yeah, it means a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of delays at the airports, missing flights from time to time, being questioned because the travel document looks fake. It means dealing with renewing documents every now and again. Even right now, as you are speaking, a little bit stressing on like renewing my Canadian study permit. So that's
But as
how
a
it works.
young person, and you're just 22 years old, what does that make you feel like, John Michael? That you almost as if have no status, really? What does that make you feel like? And then you continue to do so much inspirational work and public speaking for others.
Yeah. So, I have to premise this by saying that I don't mean to compare the pain or the level of injustice and the suffering. But last week, I received a letter from the Canadian immigration declining one of my applications for study permit. And I sat down feeling so lost and so helpless. And the only thing that I could think of are the words of George Floyd as he was being killed by a cop in the US. I can't breathe. Sometimes it feels like the system is just choking me. And again, I don't mean to compare the pain and the suffering and the injustices suffered by the black folks in the US, especially. But that's how sometimes it feels because you are trying so hard. I was talking with a friend of mine who is in Swaziland. He's Ugandan, but has grown up most of his life in Swaziland. And he was telling me that, he feels like he has to work double the time. He has to always be one step better than everyone else around them so that he can actually earn a place in the society. And that's how I feel. Most of the things I'm involved in, I'm very passionate, I'm very driven, or at least I think so. But there is also that underlying stress. Okay, I have to be better, I have to work hard if I need something positive to come out of it.
Yeah.
So my identity as a refugee pretty much informs and impacts everything else that I do.
Do you get tired? How do you keep yourself
Yes.
motivated? Because you seem so motivated to me every time I speak with you.
Yeah, no, when I'm in the public, when I'm engaging the media like this, I'm probably wearing one face different from when I'm in my room playing music, trying to compose some sad poetry. But yeah, it's hard. Either way,
But
yeah.
John Michael, you're a public speaker. You're involved, you worked as a co-representative of the African Studies minor program at the University of British Columbia. You're president of the UBC Africa Awareness Initiative. You volunteered as a wellness peer, and in Vancouver now you serve as a member of the advisory board for Level Youth Granting, an initiative by the Vancouver Foundation focused on Indigenous and racialized immigrant and refugee young people. And you served as an advisor for Amala, a charity organization which provides education to displaced youth globally. And you taught seminars focused on the refugee experience during the Yale Young Global Scholars Program at Yale University, in addition to being an author of the book, a poet, a musician, and a public speaker. So you do find ways to motivate yourself, even if you might retire to your university room or your apartment where you are in Vancouver to to recollect yourself. But where do you go to get to be able to do this sort of work to inspire others?
Yeah, so there are many things here. For me, I'm forever grateful in my life for all the people in my life. um I feel supported.
Yeah.
Many people understand, like people who are close to me understand my pain, and they understand the need to constantly like check in with me. Oh, how are you doing? Okay, this is a bit too much, take it slow here. So I have a network of support. I have mentors who are constantly like checking in with me, saying, okay, John Michael, this is good, this is another great opportunity, but hold on, because they understand that sometimes I put that pressure on me. But I also like feel a responsibility of some sort.
Why do you
You
say
know,
that?
um, some of the last words from my brother when I left Swaziland going to Germany, he like channeled me to the Bible and said, you know, to whom much is given, much is expected. And these are words that continue also to influence my thinking in the sense that being a refugee coming from such an underprivileged situation, and then you have a scholarship from Germany, somebody is willing to pay 50,000 euro for you to get some education and maybe elevate yourself to another level. And now I'm at UBC as an international leader of tomorrow. That's another scholarship covering upwards of 45,000 Canadian dollars each year for me to learn. You know, that's a lot of like I feel called to do something, to give back to the very same communities that are entrusting me, that are giving me these opportunities. So that's why for most of my involvement, you know, it's me trying to give back to the society, and that on its own is motivating. Like that, I feel like if I were to compare the satisfaction I get from that versus uh, like the stress that I get from all my stressors, identity related, document related, it's much more. I get a lot more satisfaction by just knowing that I'm doing something positive to change the world, despite being constantly pushed down.
John Michael, you're bringing tears to my eyes. I don't even have a napkin on me right now. You're just so inspiring. And I think even knowing your work and what you've been through, having read your book, and I advise you to get a copy of this book. I think that's why it's touching me so much, because you're just 22 years old and haven't been through so much and still so inspired to touch the lives of others. You know what? Let's take a few messages so that I can collect myself. Don't forget to put your questions there so that we can answer some of them on Facebook and Instagram for you. And if you really like what you're hearing, log on to fundmetnt.com and look for WorldTALK and make your contribution so we can continue giving inspiring stories. John Michael, you're a musician. We can talk about that when we come back after this. And I'm just checking out some of the comments on social media. I'm chatting with John Michael Koffi, who is so inspiring, author, public speaker, philanthropist, student, and so much more. He's the author of the book Refugee, The Journey Much Desired. We're going to find out where you can get your copy. It's a great read. I suggest you get a copy of it right now. And I just want to make a comment, John Michael, as you join us back live from Canada. I know that you are in Vancouver right now. And yes. I saw a comment. Hang on, I'm going to get it for you. And it says here, it's from Joash John Alexander. It says, his story will make an excellent film. What do you say? They're asking me what I think. Well, I already know it's a great movie right there. It's a true story. But what do you think? Any thoughts of making this a live? You've written the book. Any thoughts of making it a film?
Well, you are the producer, director, Lisa. You should be more positioned to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, so, you know, the reason why I tell my story so willingly, I know like for the past year or so, I had put a small pause on engaging the media intentionally. So, because I also need that retreat to recollect myself. But one of the primary reasons why I decided to write a book, I tell my stories to inform. I really want to inform the public to know that, what they're hearing from BBC, from The Guardian, uh, from like the statistics they are getting from the UN, there is something more than the statistics. I'm one refugee out of like more than 24 million people, more than 70 million migrants globally. So my story is unique, just like everyone else's. But through my story, at least people can get to know a bit more about the refugee experience. Mm-hmm. I also tell my story to advocate, because through the work that I'm doing, I'm trying to advocate for the refugees, to continue to garner some support. One of the projects that I've been involved in, that I'm doing, and I'll start fundraising actually soon, is building a youth learning center in the refugee camp in Swaziland. Because like there are these refugee youth are disproportionately affected when it comes to education, yet there are so many wonderful online programs and services that can be offered to them. So I want to advocate for the people who are experiencing or who have experienced the kind of life I have lived. And I also want to inspire young people globally, anyone really who feels touched by my story, but more so the youth who are in the refugee camps or refugee detention centers, different parts of the world, like Canada and Germany, to know that there is a light at the end of every tunnel.
Yeah.
So given these three things, if you ask me what I think, if my story was to be turned into a movie, of course.
Yeah. So that you can reach a wider audience.
Yeah.
And make that impact. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I hope that gives you some ideas. I'll be very happy to collaborate writing the movie script.
Okay, so we have a question from Instagram now, and it's from Susie Q Love, and she says, can the author please say his name and the name of the books? So it's John Michael Koffi, and the name of the book is The Refugee, The Journey Much Desired. John Michael, where can we get a copy of this book?
So it's available on Amazon in all formats: hard copy, paperback, ebook. But it's also available on Barnes and Noble if you are based in North America, Apple Books for e-copies, Chapters, Indigo if you are, again, North America and Europe, Smashwords, Foils if you are in the UK. And I'm pretty sure like anyone can always order a copy from their local bookstores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to do, I know you have your guitar with you somewhere there. But before we go to that, what inspiring words do you have, last words, to anyone looking on? So there might be some young people looking on, but there might be people of different age groups who might be stuck wherever they are and are looking on right now and just want to be inspired. What would you say to them?
That's interesting. Well, I don't know who is watching, so I'm gonna just say this to the youth and then to people who are in position of authority or the adults. Like if you are a young person and you're watching this interview, like the one thing that I would want, like, to say as words of encouragement, it's always important to spend time with oneself, to really like invest time in understanding who you are and understanding the world around you, taking that pause from social media, from the friend cycle, and then to dream and believe that your dreams will happen.
Yeah.
I recently had the pleasure of reading a book, The Science of Getting Rich, written in 1911. And the words communicated to me so much because the author is like, dream and believe that it will happen. So for me, that's what I would tell the youth.
Yes.
Most of the things that I'm doing right now are the things that I've been dreaming in the refugee camp, even realizing all the limitations that there are. There is no limit to what goes on in here, in the mind. And like if you are an adult, or even a youth, but you are in a position of power of supporting the people who are less privileged, it's always important to listen without preconceptions, and then to support without any expectations. The people who have supported me in life, I can give you a list, from those who are paying my application forms, like for UWC, paying transport for me to go and write entrance exams when my family did not have food, to the people right now who are paying for my scholarship at UBC. You know, I don't think they have much expectation on me, and that makes me feel freer to continue dreaming and to actually have that intrinsic uh, understanding of the responsibilities placed on me. And then to everyone, just love. You know, like, it's the easiest and most fundamental aspect of humanity, to love everyone equally. If people loved, I don't think we would be seeing the movements we are seeing in the US right now trying to stop injustices. Uh, yeah, it's the one universal law.
John Michael, you are destroying me right now, okay?
That's not my intention.
I know, I just never thought we would end here, but you are so unique and wonderfully special. But Gabrielle is online, and she says, tell us more about your time in Germany, because we kind of skipped through it, yeah? So just, that's one of the questions. You'll come back to that. And then Cheryl Metivier says, Lisa, you're truly finding and sharing some gems. Privileged to hear this young man's story.
Oh, thank you.
I know, and she's probably close to tears as I am. So tell us more about your time in Germany. Now, guys, I know we're going a little extra today, but I think it's worth it because John Michael is just unique. So we're going to give you 10 more minutes. Do you have 10 minutes to stay with us? Do you? I think we need 10 more minutes of your time, John Michael. So tell us a little bit about your time in Germany.
My time in Germany was great, and I'm not surprised Gabby would actually ask that. She was one of my closest friends, like during school. It was a lot of figuring out, and I'm sure my classmates from Robert Bosch College would relate to me trying to figure out how to switch on a washing machine, how to operate a dryer, because those are some of the things that I saw for the first time when I arrived in Germany. You know, so there is that culture shock of, oh, okay, how do I operate this and that, but also relating to the people. If I may share, I don't know how appropriate this is, but I'm going to share anyway.
Yes,
like my very first experience with Gabby, actually, when we were hiking during...
Are you sure this is something I can hear? Go on.
That's something you can hear, yes. Yeah, so we were chatting, just trying to learn about each other. And I thought the accent, the way she spoke English was so amusing and so otherworldly for me.
Yes.
Especially coming from a French background with a heavy accent, that, like, it took me twice the time to understand her.
Yes.
You know, so also learning to appreciate how global the community was. Friends from Austria, from Vietnam, like trying to create that community. I had never seen that level of diversity in ethnicity, in languages, in cultures, in everything. And talking about music, you know, one of the earliest nights in Robert Bosch, I was playing guitar, Cesarito from Guatemala playing guitar, Gabi is playing steel pan, Maho from Japan is playing violin, and that was just beautiful.
Yeah.
So some of the experiences that I think have actually created me as a world citizen and continue to give me hope. So brief, I really did enjoy my time in Germany, and yeah, it was time well spent.
What about the food? What about the food, though? The food must have been very different.
No, that we can talk about another time. There is nothing that replaces a mother's food, and I really miss my mom's food all the time. But I did get used to the kartoffel salad later on.
Oh, you had to live on salads. Certainly the ice cream was everywhere when I went, so maybe that might have helped a little bit, yeah? What's next for you? What's next for you?
What's next for me? So I have a couple projects. I envision myself in the next 10, 15 years or so being really influential in youth empowerment, especially across the African continent, but also influencing policies to do with migration and education. Right now, I've been trying to develop my project management passion as well.
Yes.
So I'm hoping to be like working in that arena, trying to see how we can use these projects coming from Africa by Africans mostly to actually reach like the broader scope. Yeah, I'm passionate about the continent. I don't think I will stick in Canada for a very long time.
What are
Yeah,
you
I just
studying? What are you studying at the University of British Columbia right now?
I'm doing international relations and creative writing.
Yeah, so you're mixing the two, left brain, right brain kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and we just have a few more minutes. In terms of what you're seeing going on in the US, I know we touched on it earlier, but we did plan to have a comment from you in terms of you know, Black Lives Matter, and being a young black man who had to go through so much, had to endure so much, and now coming and being exposed to what's going on in the United States.
Yeah, like I said, I'm very proud of all the people who are taking on the streets. I'm not particularly proud of the violence that we've seen. I think that's some form of infiltration. Although I would like stand by these words, some level of violence is also justified to make the government wake up. Because the United States, like many other Western governments, they listen to economy, they listen to, you know, like the moment you are demonstrating peacefully, like black folks all over the world have been raising their voices for the longest period possible. 400 years of injustices from slavery, and then you have colonialism in Africa and in Canada and other many indigenous groups being suppressed. Right now, what you're seeing in the US, it gives me hope, especially looking at the fact that 50 years ago, when Martin Luther King and his compatriots were gathering, it was only black people gathering. But now in the demonstrations, you are seeing blacks, whites, people of Asian descent, all of them gathering together saying enough is enough.
Yeah.
For me, that gives me hope. And I'm hoping that the future will be brighter.
Yeah.
We are
Well,
going to see a lot of transformations, and I really can't wait to see my children, hopefully, growing up in an equitable world.
Well, with you in it, John Michael Koffi, the future is definitely brighter. I predict, you know, that you are going to be some spectacular person. You've already been a spectacular person in 22 years. And I predict either head of the UN or some international. Mark this day. What is today? Mark this day. I said it. I called it. But I'm also calling a song from you right now, because I know you have your guitar. You said you were going to sing for me, right?
All right. So the song I'm thinking of offering you again in line with what's going on globally right now, it's called The Government.
Yes.
And it's one song that I sang really when I was very frustrated with all these governmental experiences. Enjoy. We're going to just sing a bit of like the verse and then the chorus.
Okay.
After all, you're the one I run to for my protection, for my distraction. And today of all the days, I need you more than ever, to lie to me, to keep me in the dark of your bitter, twisted lies. Government, you say you will be there for me every time, anytime I need you. Can you do me this favor? Lie to me, tell me tomorrow will be better. I know tomorrow will be better as always.
Aww. Thank you so much, John Michael Koffi, and thank you for being my guest on the program today. and all success in your career and in your life. I'm going to take in a few messages and come right back. Such an inspiring young man. I want to check some of you out before I go. Dennis Granado says the true essence of love, to give without expectations. Stephanie Guevara says, fantastic job as usual, Lisa. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And Joash Alexander says, there's so many people who need to hear about this young man. Well, what you can do to help them here is to share the link, and also join the YouTube page and share that link as well. This is going to be up on the Facebook for a little bit, as well as on YouTube for in perpetuity. So you can go and share and let people hear about this young man, John Michael Koffi, who at the age of 22 has touched the lives of so many in his short life. And I predict that he has so much more to do in this world. Again, if you have been inspired by this program today, please go on to www.fundmetnt.com and look for World Talk, and you can contribute whatever you can to help us continue this journey and continue to inspire the lives of others. All right, then I want to thank John Michael Koffi for being my guest this week. Join us again next week, same time, when I'll be speaking with Paki, and Paki's from India. Remember, we're talking to people from all over the world. And right now, as we do every week, I want to share a video from someone from my country, Trinidad and Tobago. This is a Jara nurse. He says fed up. He's fed up. Let's hear what it's about, and see you next time.
Oh Lord, make me talk to them gunman, them why? Talk to them. Bam bam, brother, brother. My journey, God alone, I walk with me. Okay. I want them by them promoting. We fed up by the gun thing, and I know what them want. Not ready like ready for no shelling. Swanny say, watch your friend in her, because me fed up by them friend killer. Why can't we just live like brother, brother? Let love one another, make the old days better, so we know one of our young leader. Make them buy come out of peer pressure. Why everybody wanna be a sasa? I know no assets, them who I press, when a big chain and white vest. Them put mama in stress, when the maniac march out and live one life. When Swani Gelano, Lumpy Boss Movado, telling maniac, we on and get you. Listen what me tell you, we need more love in the ghetto. Sing some positive tune and set them get